Damon Khan here for Seconds Out with boxer promoter Ben Shalom. Ben, good to see you. Good to be speaking to you on a scheduled interview in Wembley Box Park ahead of Azim versus Lipinets. Look, Azim's got a step up here against Sergey Lipinets. What risks, what dangers do you feel he poses to him on fight night?
I think it's a know-how. It's a world level experience. It's the aggression that he has, and the fact that he's extremely confident. I think if Adam hadn't performed so well against Ahara Davis, we wouldn't have taken this fight. And I can say that hand on heart, this is a tough fight. Sergey Lipinets only has ever lost to the real elite and has some unbelievable wins on his record, and former world champion. Still only 35 years old with not loads of miles on the clock as well. So this stuff around him being past it is complete nonsense. He's an extremely tough opponent for Adam Azim, and people should get behind him. This is a really risky fight. He's got power, he's awkward, he's aggressive, and as I say, he knows his way around the ring, and he's licking his lips at this. And when we signed the contract, we couldn't sign him to. He wanted terms around what happens if he wins, and when he wins in his eyes. So that shows you the level of confidence he's coming into this. This is a real step up, and I'm looking forward to it. And but it's Adam's night. It's Adam's night to make a statement and show that he's world level.
Let's get straight into it, because you opened the door in terms of the context as to Eddie Hearn's comments that he's made surrounding this fight, and obviously the rivalry with Dalton Smith. So you'd expect it, especially with Dalton Smith's recent outing against Wally Louisa, some comments would be made towards Adam Azim. One of the things that he mentioned, you've obviously covered about Lipinets, was also when Adam Azim went to Sky Sports, he mentioned that he was closing down on Gervonta Davis, and Eddie, to paraphrase him, said that was a kind of stupid thing to say as to where Adam Azim is right now. What's your reaction? Closing down on Gervonta Davis and that sort of level of operator. What's your response to Eddie feeling that's not where Adam Azim stands to be in this moment in time?
Well, Adam Azim's trajectory is nothing short of phenomenal. 22 years old, fighting for an IBO world title, fastest man to ever win a European title. Of course, the sky's the limit. He wants to do things that's unprecedented in this weight division, and I believe it will. So Eddie's very smart, and he knows what he's doing. And look, we get on now, but the reality is, the whole thing last week was a complete distraction as to what happened in the ring and who Dalton Smith was fighting. How can Adam Azim be fighting better opponents than Dalton Smith? We all know what happens in boxing. The big names get called out by the smaller names. It's very rare that it's a 28-year-old calling out a 22-year-old. It's usually the other way around. And then the joke is that he's actually having much tougher tests than Dalton is. Sergey Lipinets would beat that fella for breakfast. That's the reality. Eating for breakfast. That's the reality. I like Eddie, but every time Dalton Smith fights, it's like an Adam Azim promotion, and they really want that. Like, I think they, judging by the last opponent, maybe it's not selling. Maybe it's a hard sell. Maybe it's this. By the way, Dalton Smith's a lovely guy and is not involved in this, and I get the impression that him and Adam are pretty similar in the way they don't really care. They want to get on with their own career. But the fact is, they're looking for a solution. They're looking for a way out, and they're looking for a big fight. And that fight will happen. But I'm just saying it's quite interesting, given the level of opponents being fought, how Adam Azim becomes the subject matter. And as I say, it's smart promotion, and it takes away from what happened last week.
It was suggested that Adam Azim, should he come through, Lipinets would have been on the Eubank Jr versus Ben undercard. Was that the case?
We agreed he would fight Montana Love a few weeks ago, which I think is a great fight. But Adam has Ramadan that he observes extremely strictly, which finishes on April the 1st. So for him to fight on April 26th, I think is very, very difficult at the best of times. And then we were told a couple of weeks ago Montana Love pulled out, and then with different names are being discussed, and in the end you can't negotiate with a fighter and get a fighter to agree a fight when he's 2 weeks away from fighting a former world champion for the similar money, and it just didn't work out. And so in the end we said, look, Brisbane Smith's got a great fight here in Glanton, and let's just see what happens on Saturday night. It's boxing, it's sport. Adam Azim could lose on Saturday night. This is a tough fight. It's a real fight. It's irresponsible to be doing back and forth and terms and this and that about another fight after this fight. So let's see what happens. But as I say, I knew it was coming. It's Dalton Smith fight week. He's fighting someone that no one has heard of. So let's talk about Azim for a week.
Let's move on to the other big talking point in the sphere of boxing, and that being Eubank Jr. versus Ben. Now, I remember in the context of the conversation of getting the fight over the line, you were saying that you'd done a great job in getting Eubank Jr. talking him down from the percentage you wanted down to 55-45. To get the fight over the line, what was the percentage agreed at?
There wasn't a percentage. Luckily, I think the biggest difference was Conor Benn probably couldn't accept that Chris Eubank Jr. would be earning more than him and should be earning more than him and probably should be earning a lot more than him. Luckily, with His Excellency's involvement, he was able to not, the fighters done their separate deals, confidential deals. And so there isn't that ego or that comparison. And so that makes it easier to get done, if that makes sense. So it's not working like a traditional percentage split.
What would have happened without that?
Look, we can all say it would have been harder. His Excellency was fantastic in helping us get over the line and has put on a great show. So very grateful to him. It would have been a shame if it didn't happen, given the size of it. But I'm glad it's happened. And as I say, it would have been harder and it might not have happened. But the interest since is off the scale. Like, it really is. Whatever you want to say about this fight, the interest, multi-generational between two British fighters, is pretty special, and I think it would do really well for the sport.
What was your position on the rehydration clause, and how do you feel it will affect your fighter on fight night?
My position is difficult. I don't want to bring a stain to this event. There was a massive stain on the last event. It was horrible. The media interest, the people close to both fighters, and what was being said, and the weight cuts for that show was actually a disgrace. That really was. And so it was the last thing we wanted, and I thought there was an understanding that we weren't going to go down that route again. So all I'll say is I wish it hadn't happened. I don't agree with it, but ultimately the fighters, I can't tell you what you should weigh in and what we should weigh in. The fighters decide for themselves. Fundamentally, if you agree a weight category and you agree a weight division, that's what it is. And yeah, but I don't want to talk. It's difficult, as I said. I don't want to bring a big stain on the event. It's a massive event for everyone involved. It's a massive event for British boxing. It's a massive event for His Excellency and everyone involved. And yeah, it's a shame. It came out of left field. And when you're already down the line and you've prepared and everything's done and you've said no to other fights because you were going to go down a different route, so it's difficult. But ultimately, that's for Chris to answer. It's not my body, it's not my situation. Chris is going to do a demolition job regardless. But I think that's a question for Chris.
Eubank Jr. is known to speak his mind, whatever the outcome. It sees him now, obviously having had papers served towards him by Frank Warren. But I just wonder, look, how does the fight between Eubank Jr. and Ben get promoted without touching upon the past 2 years with the case that Conor Benn has had to answer for? How is it not promoted on that sense, as opposed to just the rivalry between the two?
That will follow Conor for the rest of his career, I think, and that will be something he has to deal with. He's done his time. I've got nothing against Conor Benn, and look, I actually think, in many people's eyes, this is a very close fight, and there's advantages on both sides. And the history of the names is what sells it. I don't think when it comes round to it, it's anything to do with that. To get a fight that can sell out Spurs, that can sell 800, 900, 1 million pay-per-view buys, there's something very special in that. And so, of course, I think the background of the fight, of course, plays its part. And that's why I think it's become very personal for Chris Eubank Jr. But all the biggest fights, the greatest fights, the greatest spectacles have an edge, and this has an edge, and it's bigger than it ever was, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I think it's great that the whole undercard are pretty much British fights. It's showing what British boxing can do. I don't think there's any other country in the world that can.
There's absolutely an edge between Liam Cameron and Ben Whittaker. Can you give us an update as to where the rematch stands, and also the reasoning behind serving letters before action to Liam Cameron?
The fight looks like if as long as the position doesn't change on the other side, that's pretty much there. And so hopefully we can announce that pretty soon, which I think fans will be happy about. In terms of the thing, it was not really Liam Cameron stuff. Was just a pawn in that situation and was being told what to say and said things that weren't true and that can be really damaging. And we don't ask for damages. We weren't asking for any issues. We were just saying, please, can you retract? Saying essentially what are, just lies. But Liam's a great guy. Liam's worked hard for this point. He's going to get a great payday. He's done fantastically well to get to this point. It's never about Liam Cameron. I think all that nonsense is finished and done with now, and we can get on with it. And look, I'm just extremely looking forward to Ben Whittaker's return. If there was noise around him before, there's serious noise around him now, and let's see if he can handle that. And he'll have some news to announce soon about his team, about who he's in training with, and I'm excited for the future.
Finally, to bring it back to this card, you had some fire between Horger and Callum Simpson. You've got out very quickly, and Scott Forrest as well too, from a few weeks back. What was the thinking behind getting those two out as quick as possible, and how do you rate the card?
Just look, I have to be honest, when you have two big fights and people don't know about that, 3 weeks out or 2.5 weeks out that go, you're not going to, unless someone's in the gym or recently fought, you're not going to get a big fight on 2.5 weeks notice, or a big fight that wants to go on 2.5 weeks notice. Thankfully, Callum and Scott both did the job in huge fashion on January the 11th. Callum's on an absolute roll right now, produced big numbers in January, headlining, now comes and defends his Commonwealth title. And Scott Forrest was like, you know what, I'll take anything. Jumps into a 50-50 fight against Aurel Ignat, who comes in 8-0, trains with Martin Bowers, 7 knockouts out of 8 wins. Really good fight. And so you have to pull together in that situation. We've got an unbelievable main event, and you've got fighters that are getting that huge opportunity. Lucas Rohrig, who everyone raves about in the gym, gets his opportunity. Garen Croft from GB gets his debut, his debut on Sky. So you have to make sure that the card goes on, and you have to make sure that this is such a defining night for Adam Azim's career, that you have to make sure it goes on. And credit to Callum and Scott for doing this, because they're real fighters, they're real men, and they want the activity.
Been a pleasure, looking forward to it. Thanks for being Seconds Out.